Goblin launch detected.
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. with free weekly content and free shipping on orders over $150. You can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game has Mika, Maximus, and Eric joining us, with Maximus playing his Inalla Archmage Ritualist deck, which is wizard themed, and he's hoping to make some copies of them. He keeps Terminate, Mindcrank, Tribute Mage, Temple of the False God, Reliquary Tower, Command Tower, and a Blood Crypt. Mika is playing his Christmas deck, which is Selenia Dark Angel, and he keeps Swamp, the Stasis Coffin, Necropotence, Godless Shrine, Blood Celebrant, and 2 Plains. Eric wants to take us on an adventure with Gorion, Wise Mentor, and he keeps Reflecting Pool, Fortified Village, 2 Islands, Wild Growth, Sword Coast Serpent, and a Hypnotic Sprite. I've dusted off the reliable Trostani Selenia's voice, and I'm hoping to make some tokens for my graveyard. I keep a Wooded Bastion, Reclamation Sage, Forest, Arctic Treeline, Soul Ring, Plains, and a Worldly Tutor. Eric wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws and plays a tapped Fortified Village. Mika plays a tapped Godless Shrine and passes. Max has his own tap land with a Blood Crypt. I don't want to break from the mold, and I play a tapped Arctic Treeline. Eric plays a Reflecting Pool, and then casts Wild Growth and enchants it onto the pool. Mika draws and plays a Caves of Koilos. He then casts a Blood Celebrant, passing. Max has a Command Tower for turn, and the game takes a bit of a turn as he pays 2 mana for a Mindcrank. I've got a Plains, and I cast Soul Ring. Eric plays a Flooded Grove, and then taps out for his commander, Gorion, passing after that. Mika draws, and plays a Plains. He then casts the Stasis Coffin, and passes. Max plays a Reliquary Tower, and then casts a Rod of Absorption. He passes, and during his end step, I cast a Worldly Tutor, putting Priest of Titania on top, and then take my turn. I draw my Priest, and play a Forest. I then cast the Priest, and a Reclamation Sage, which as it enters, destroys the Rod of Absorption. Eric draws, and plays a Forest. He casts a Felwar Stone, and then goes to combat. He swings his commander at Max, dealing 3, and passing. Mika draws, and plays a Swamp. He pays 3 black mana for a Necropotence, but Eric responds by casting a Mesmerizing Glare to counter it. After that, Mika passes. Max has a Drowned Catacombs which comes into play tapped, but with nothing else, has to pass. I draw, and play a Plains. I've then got enough mana to cast a Fauna Shaman, as well as Trostani, and pass. Eric plays an island in his main phase, and then plays a Lucky Clover. He then goes on to the adventure with a Hypnotic Sprite, and then goes to combat. He pokes Mika with a Gorion this time for 3, which in turn mills him for 3 thanks to the Mindcrank, and after that, he passes. Mika draws and plays a Plains. He casts an Angel of Destiny and passes after that. Max casts a Tribute Mage in his main phase, paying the 1 to make a copy with Inalla. He tutors for a Felwar Stone and a Talisman of Dominance. He then plays a Temple of the False God and taps it to cast the Felwar Stone. Moving to combat, he swings his Hasty Token at me, and I decide to take the 2 to get some free mill in. After that, he passes, and during his end step, Eric casts a Capsizing Wave, which he copies from Gorion and Lucky Clover, bouncing my Fauna Shaman, Priest of Titania, and Trostani. I draw and play a Wooded Bastion. I then replay the Fauna Shaman, and cast an Elemental Bond, and pass. Eric draws and plays an island. He then casts Vega the Watcher, and then moving to combat, it's my turn as he swings his commander at me. I opt again to take the hit, milling 3 cards, and with that, Eric passes. Mika plays a Plains, and then casts a Cliffhaven Vampire, and moves to combat. He swings the Angel of Destiny at me for 4, which gains me 4 back, and then mills me for 4 cards, while Mika gains 4 as well. We all then get drained for 2 from the Cliffhaven Vampire from his 2 instances of life gain. After that, he passes. Max draws and casts his Talisman of Dominance, and then plays a Riptide Laboratory. He then activates the lab, bouncing the Tribute Mage back to his hand, and replays it, paying 1 again to copy it with Inalla. The 2 copies find him a Talisman of Curiosity and an Arcane Signet, and once the tutoring's done, he swings the copy of me again for 2, which I take, and mill 2 more cards. I draw, and play a Sungrass Prairie. I then activate the Fauna Shaman, pitching the Priest of Titania to go and tutor for a Karmic Guide. I then cast the Karmic Guide, which reanimates a Sun Titan, which in turn enters the battlefield and brings back Survival of the Fittest. I also get to draw a card from the Elemental Bond. I'm pretty happy with my turn at this point, and I pass. Eric draws, and plays an Alchemist Refuge. He then casts the Sword Coast Serpent, which draws a card off of Vega, and then plays a Birds of Paradise. Going to combat, Eric swings his commander at me again, and I take the hit for 3 to mill another 3 cards. He passes after that. Mika plays a Swamp, and then goes to combat. I seem to be the archenemy at this point, as he goes at me with the Angel of Destiny. I take the hit, but immediately gain the life back, and we all get drained for 2 again, while Mika gains 4 life. I also mill some cards, and with nothing else, he passes. Max has an island for turn, and casts his Talisman of Curiosity and Arcane Signet, and then plays a Moonsilver Key. He then cracks the key to go and find a Midnight Clock, which he then casts and passes. On his end step, I activate Survival of the Fittest, discarding a creature card to find an Elder Gargoth, and then activate Survival again, pitching the Gargoth to go and find an Uvenwald Hydra. I don't pay for the Echo cost on Karmic Guide, and it dies, and I draw for turn. I then played a Panharmonicon and swing Sun Titan at Max. I bring back the Wood Elves with the On Attack trigger, which gets me a Forest and a Temple Garden, and I take 2 so it comes in untapped. Max then chumps with the Tribute Mage, and in my second main phase, I then cast an Uvenwald Hydra. This lets me get a Mirror Pool and a Rogue's Passage from its 2 triggers. Instead of drawing for the first Elemental Bond draw trigger from the Hydra entering, I dredge back a Golgari Grave Troll, bidding 6 cards. I then draw a card off the second Elemental Bond trigger and pass to Eric. Eric draws and plays Grazilax. He then swings the Sword Coast Serpent at me and Gorion at Max. I block the Serpent with Wood Elves, and Eric decides to return it to his hand with Grazilax, while Max takes the 3. In his post-combat main phase, Eric then casts a Banishing Coils, exiling Mindcrank, Survival of the Fittest, and Panharmonicon. He passes after that. Mika draws and casts a Pact Weapon. He equips it onto the Angel of Destiny and goes to combat. In response, Max terminates my Uvenwald Hydra, and Mika swings the Angel at me. He reveals Demonic Tutor from the Pact Weapon trigger, losing 2 and giving the Angel +2/+2. I then take the 8 but gain it back, and we all lose 2 again from the Cliffhaven Vampire. With nothing else, he passes. Maximus draws and plays a Celundi Visions. He then reveals a Maddening Cacophony from it, and then plays it with the Kicker. This has us each milling half of our libraries, and once that's done, he casts Reanimate, and brings back my Sarah's Emissary. As it enters, he names Creature. After that, Max passes. My turn has me drawing and replaying Trostani. I then sacrifice the Mirror Pool and target the Sun Titan to make a token copy of it. Eric responds by casting a Capsizing Wave again and bounces the Sun Titan, Sarah's Emissary, and Angel of Destiny. I then cast Life from the Loam, targeting my Mirror Pool, Command Tower, and Bountiful Promenade. I then pass after that. Eric draws and goes to combat. He swings the Sprite at Max, Vega at me, and Gorion at Mika. We all take the damage, with Eric drawing off of Grazilax. After combat, he plays Welcome Home, making 3 bears 3 times. He then plays a Flaxen Intruder and passes. Mika draws and casts Demonic Tutor. He equips the pack weapon to the Cliffhaven Vampire and swings it at Max, revealing a swamp for no extra pump. After that, he plays Camball and passes. Max draws and plays a Chaos Wand, which triggers Camball and drains him for 2, and then we all get drained again for 1 from the Cliffhaven Vampire trigger. Max then activates Chaos Wand and targets Eric, flipping into Eric's only instant or sorcery, which is a Primal Surge. He then flips into a Dualcaster Mage, Dax Duplicant, Soul Ring, Mirror Maid, Soul and Strategy, Augur of Bolus, Kiki Jiki, Bloodline Necromancer, a few lands, and a Rhystic Study. Max pays to copy the Augur of Bolus and the Bloodline Necromancer, and the Mirror Maid becomes a copy of the Stasis Coffin. The Dax Duplicant also comes in as a copy of Camball. Max then resolves the Necromancer's trigger, getting back a Tribute Mage, which goes and tutors for Lightning Greaves. Max then casts the Greaves, getting drained for 3 from the Camball and the Cliffhaven Vampire, while Eric and I get drained for 1. He then equips them onto Kiki Jiki. Max then casts a Windfall, losing another 3, and Eric and I lose 1, and we all then discard our hand and draw 7. Max then plays a Dimir Aqueduct and goes to combat. He swings all of his wizard copies at Mika. Mika activates the Stasis Coffin to prevent his life total from changing, and with nothing else, Max passes after that. I draw and play Sunpetal Grove. I then encore Soul of Eternity, which gains me 16 life, then 32 life, then 64 life. I jump to 128 life, and then cast an Altar of Dementia. This has me losing 6 from the Cumballs and the Cliffhaven Vampire trigger, and I then sacrifice one of the souls to mill Eric for 123 cards. I then sacrifice another one to mill Max for 123 cards. But Max responds by cracking his Stasis Coffin. In response to that, I sacrifice my last soul to mill Max out anyway. With that trigger on the stack, Max activates Kiki Jiki to make a token copy of Augur of Bolus to see if he can find anything, but only reveals a Torment of Hailfire. After that, I pass turn. Eric untaps and checks his graveyard for any solution to decking, but finds none, and with nothing to punish me on his way out, Eric loses the game. Mika draws and plays a Swamp. He then swings a Cliffhaven Vampire at me, revealing a land, and I take the 2. He then plays a Tithe Drinker and a Drowned's Emissary, paying for the Extort, and we each get drained for 2 total thanks to Cliffhaven Vampire. After that, Mika passes. Max goes to his upkeep and reveals a land for me and a greed from Mika with the Stolen Strategy. He then upticks the Midnight Clock to its final counter, shuffling his hand and graveyard together before drawing a fresh 7. This saves him from decking, unfortunately, and he draws for turn. He then moves to cast out Inanimate Dead and steals Mika's Platinum Angel. He then plays a Mnemonic Deluge and casts Mika's Repaying Kind, dropping to the negatives from Mika's Camball and then casting 3 copies. Thanks to Platinum Angel, Max will stay alive, but Mika and I will drop into the negatives and Max wins the game. Game review time. So today's game was probably a shining example of keeping track of what everyone has and what the permanents they have do. Unfortunately for me, due to Encore, I didn't have the opportunity to wait until Maximus's upkeep to sacrifice my tokens, as they were going to be exiled by the end of my turn. I really thought I had the game in the bag, and I'm really thankful that all of you viewers suggested I put Soul of Eternity into Trostani. It's been a fantastic addition. Mika's Selenia deck is a constant reminder that I need to put Pact Weapon into one of my decks. It's just card draw and pumping, and it does all the kind of fun things that Black wants to do on an artifact. I love it. I also really loved Gorion. I wasn't a big fan of Adventure to begin with, but getting 2, or in Eric's case, 3 copies of each adventure seems powerful, even if he isn't banned. I did not expect that win from Maximus, as I'm sure most people didn't, including himself, since it relied on him having negative life, something that doesn't come up very often, and him stealing Mika's Platinum Angel, which seems to be a theme for every time that deck comes to play. I thought it was particularly spicy, and an all-around really fun game. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.